almost everything you see is connected. It is one big web of lies. And the things that the left, that the media scream most loudly about as being spontaneous are the things that you know are not spontaneous. They're all very well planned.
There is a cabal of billionaires wielding massive influence over our everyday lives. And they don't just seek to meet their political goals. They want to fundamentally transform the world as we know it.
There's an enormous apparatus that we call the professional left. Dozens and dozens and dozens of activist groups in every possible issue area, backed by dozens of major funders, mostly foundations.
They want to remake America over in their image, and it's not a pretty image.
One of these billionaires, George Soros, is one of the most powerful and mysterious figures in recent history. But many note that Soros is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to billionaire financiers.
Soros is one of the few really well-known household names, but I could spout off a dozen major foundations that pour in just as much money.
I've spent decades of my life studying the left, and especially all the nonprofit apparatus built up in the left. I will say that we should remember that Soros is not the only left-wing billionaire who's giving tens of millions to Democrats, who's giving hundreds of millions to left-wing nonprofits. In fact, I would say that his rough equal is the Ford Foundation, because what I can tell you is that almost never will you find a significant left-wing group that doesn't receive money from both the Ford Foundation and George Soros.
These supposed philanthropic billionaires hiding behind various foundations have been giving huge amounts of money to left-wing causes for decades.
There are so many nonprofit entities, so many philanthropic vehicles, so many curly-Q funding streams of giving all those mini billionaires who all have the same last name, foundation, like Ford Foundation, Kellogg Foundation, MacArthur Foundation, Open Society Foundation.
Many accuse these figures as being globalists.
Globalism is where a small group of people decide everything for the whole world. It's motivated for a power grab. And St. Augustine called it libido dominandi, the lust to dominate. Now, the problem is whenever you get somebody that's in power, they want to stay in power. And anything goes for your power grab. And that's what we're seeing, is that there are those that want to fund groups that can create crises, because in times of crises, people surrender freedoms.
People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction.
The idea that we have 10 or 12 years or something like that to live, that the earth will become uninhabitable in a short time unless we defeat this global warming, that is entirely off the radar of any serious climate scientists.
Every single major environmental group has Soros money in it. And we're not talking about things like the Nature Conservancy, but we are talking about the Sierra Club, which has been quite radical in recent years, the Natural Resource Defense Council, various other extreme climate groups, which are dedicated to eliminating fossil fuels in America.
Climate alarmists have long received money from radical left-wing foundations. Their goal? To destroy capitalism.
A variety of environmentalists claim that capitalism is bad for the environment because the private owners of business really have only the bottom line in mind, and so they don't care about the impact of their pollution emissions on other people. The case against capitalism is not strong. Historically, the case is amazing. If you simply compare the track records of environmental stewardship of largely capitalist countries with largely socialist countries over the past 100 years, it's not a pretty picture. The socialist track record for environmental stewardship is absolutely horrendous. I think that the madness, the real insanity that I'm seeing in much of the climate movement is reflected in and really a shared madness with a lot of other things that are running rampant in our culture today.
And out of the climate awareness movement comes calls for population control.
And it does lead, I think, young people to have a legitimate question. You know, is it okay to still have children?
We're going into a very dangerous territory where here you have people with immense resources, immense political power, yet they're pushing an agenda that would abort millions of babies and sterilize millions of others. That's dangerous.
Well, Soros is one of a cabal of billionaires that come out of that population control movement, absolutely. Soros is a major donor to Planned Parenthood, to all sorts of abortion lobbies located in very, very cush offices in DC. But he's not even the biggest. You have guys like Warren Buffett, who most people think of as simply, you know, America's biggest investor, America's biggest philanthropist, as he's often been called by Forbes. He may be those things, but Warren Buffett is probably the biggest funder of abortion in human history. His foundation, the Susan Thompson Buffett Foundation, which is named for his late wife, has spent $4 billion in the last 20 years on abortion advocacy. $4 billion. George Soros' ideology is predicated on the same hard left causes that you see in Marxist activists. It's fundamentally anti-American because it's fundamentally anti-borders. It opposes the idea of nationhood wherever it goes. The left is basically an expression of, call it progressivism, call it socialism, Marxism, whatever you like, but it is the political distillation of an anti-Western civilization.
Soros has long funded immigration groups whose goal is to get rid of America's border with Mexico and stop deportation of illegal immigrants, and also extend the vote to illegal immigrants. So you see where this is going.
The ultimate goal here is the downfall of Western society, and the one thing standing in their way, the church. But now, many evangelical organizations have begun to accept donations from Soros and others.
Mr. Soros calls himself an atheist and doesn't have much love for any kind of church or religious entity. But, you know, interestingly, he will fund some religious groups like Catholics and Alliance for the Common Good and whatnot. Well, guess who is a significant funder to something like that? Or in the evangelical world, of course, you have Sojourners, probably the most prominent mouthpiece of left-wing politics in the evangelical world, and they regularly got six-figure grants from Soros philanthropies over the years. I think the strategy behind Soros's funding in places where you wouldn't expect it, like the occasional evangelical group or Catholic group, is very opportunistic. Any way of insinuating yourself into a group like that and weakening its opposition to your policy and political preferences will be seized on.
And this devious strategy is working. Many Christian groups have made huge compromises. For instance, the PCA's Revoice movement, involving the LGBTQ agenda, and the Southern Baptist Convention flirting with the idea of critical race theory.
Christians in America need to wake up, because some Christians have compromised themselves in some denominations in a way that they are no threat to the government. The government loves them because they're part of the propaganda arm. They have found a way that the Bible embraces the homosexual lifestyle. We know that the Bible that we read doesn't, but they have reinterpreted Scripture. Using their own words, they have reimagined the Bible. And the Bible that they have reimagined condones things that are condemned, that we would call sin.